Elevation Nation. We have a treat for you today, tonight, whenever you are tuning in. You know, Parker and I love to learn. We also love to learn what's going on in our bodies, in our minds, emotionally, spiritually, medically, physically. So we are so excited to welcome Ashleigh Di Lello on to Elevation Nation today with us. And you are so incredible, so impressive. I don't even know if I can start with your story and give you a decent elevator pitch. So, Ashleigh, I'm going to ask you to do that for me, to bail me out here, because there are so many different aspects of who you are and what you've done throughout your life. Can we have a quick background on you?
Yes. Well, thank you for having me, guys. I'm excited to be here and to chat. And yeah, I've definitely lived many lives, it feels like, in my life and overcome some pretty significant challenges. And that's why I'm so passionate about my work in the brain because we all have these same mechanisms. And that's before I give you an overview, that's just what I want to emphasize is as you listen briefly to my story, I think it's so easy to discount ourselves and say, oh, well, that's her life. Let me come back to me and my limitations of my life. But then we'll circle back around and I'll share with you the very same mechanisms you have in your brain that I access to be able to kind of overcome what I have in my life. So, a brief summary. I've gone through two life altering health experiences. I started early. When I was barely 13 years old, I was sent home to die. I had a rare viral infection no one could diagnose or treat. My liver was shutting down, my skin was yellow. I got to the point where I couldn't even speak or lift a finger. It was terrifying. I really know what it feels like to be dying. And I also know what it's like to overcome insurmountable odds. I was 13 when a doctor told me I needed to accept I wasn't going to live past my teenage years. And that moment, which I think everyone has had maybe those moments in your life, when you think, how in the world am I here? How is this my life? How could this be happening? I think I felt every human emotion that exists in that brief one moment, but I'm really grateful for that moment because it became the most defining time in my life because I decided right then and there to not accept limitations put on me, notwithstanding the expert in front of me, notwithstanding how big the challenge was and is. So 13 years old, I thought I would get sick and get better. And then 4 years, I fought for my life. And that's when I really understood how powerful the brain is because I had nights I was too afraid to go to sleep. Actually, too afraid that if I went to sleep and surrendered that conscious will to live, that my body wouldn't make it. So I would stay awake through those long hours of the night, just willing my body to keep fighting. So when people talk about the mind body connection, I've intricately experienced just how profoundly powerful that is. That was a long journey in and of itself, but I survived, obviously. 4 years after fighting for my life, I was reclaiming my health. 6 years later, I went back to dance, which was the love of my life at that time. And I went to school as well and got my degree in other things, which was great because it led the way to eventually neuroscience being my work. But I had an amazing professional dance career with my husband, who was my professional partner. And we performed in over 45 countries around the world. We did TV shows like So You Think You Can Dance and Dancing with the Stars, which now everybody is so on board with, but that's fun for me to see as a former ballroom dancer. And we did Broadway. We headlined a Broadway show. We were really at the top of our career, and for me it was like the top of the mountain. Like I've been in the depths, and look where I am now, and successful in the thing that I love and so healthy. And then everything was taken away again, and you think when you go through one big thing like I did, it's like, check, I did that in my life, right? Can we move forward? And I had a 2 year old daughter at the time, which was also a miracle for me because I'd been told I'd never have kids. And she was coming with us as we performed and traveled. And it was just really such a beautiful time in my life. And obviously, being so physical, I had injuries and I went into a second hip surgery and it failed and I lost the ability to walk and suddenly went into this round two of the worst health experience I didn't think could be worse than the first, but it was because I was living in debilitating nerve pain in over 10 areas of my body, struggling to do even the very basic of tasks. I lost my professional career. I couldn't be the wife I wanted to be, the mother I wanted to be. Every day was just hell, sleeping 2 to 3 hours a night. And it was very deja vu. But this time, a whole new realm, and frankly, so much harder because now I have this responsibility as a mother, wife, business owner, impacting my whole family. So I thought, okay, I've overcome before. We can do this. And I threw everything in the kitchen sink, like Western, Eastern, alternative, regenerative, holistic, every biohack you've ever heard of, like whatever. I was literally like a pincushion. I had over 200 injections of all the stem cell, PRP, prolotherapy. I mean, if it existed, I've done it. And to the point of nearly losing our home because we were putting all of our resources into trying to get me well. And I had so many areas of my body that this had spread to. I was diagnosed with about 5 different chronic pain conditions that they say are life sentences. And truthfully, like the evidence showed that after several years of trying all of this, I was just getting worse. And one night, the darkest night of my soul, and I think a lot of us have had those moments where literally I was just so exhausted. I living in that hell, watching my family go through that. Every day was torture. And really that night earlier in the evening, my husband and I had spoken and I'd said, there's nothing left to try. Like what else? There's nothing left. Like we couldn't find any other treatment that I had not done. And that night it was like 2 in the morning and I was on my bedroom floor because I was rocking back and forth in just this debilitating pain. And I really thought like, what if I just give up? Like, what if I'm so exhausted trying to fight, trying to find treatments. There's nothing left. I've never felt so depleted. And I honestly thought from what I'd gone through previous in my life that I could never get to that place where I was. But living in that pain just literally drains you in every which way that you can imagine. And your whole life is stripped away from you. And that really scared me because I'd been a fighter my whole life. Like I'd refused to die. I fought for my career. I fought like my whole life had been defined by this fighter mentality of overcoming. And so to get so depleted to where I didn't recognize that part of me anymore. And I remember sitting in that place of absolute just defeat and overwhelm and thinking about what that would look like for myself and my family if I just gave up. And as I sat in that truth, I wasn't okay with that. And slowly but surely, I remember just thinking, trying to come up with answers, thinking about my whole journey. And the consensus had been that my nervous system flipped a switch into pain. And that's what they tell chronic pain patients, like now you're a chronic pain patient. And essentially that's what happens with people who now get stuck in anxiety or depression. It's like, well, now this is your operating system. And as I was contemplating over that, I thought, well, if it can flip a switch into pain, there's got to be a way to flip it back. And that very next day, I started studying neuroscience 5+ hours a day because my life literally depended on it. And I merged all the science with my lived experience. And that dark night of the soul really was where my greatest desperation met my greatest determination, right? And that's the gift of rock bottom sometimes. And slowly but surely, I was creating this process called bioemotional healing. And as it was giving my life back, I knew that's what I was going to do and needed to do. And my whole life had trained me to do. And I've been coaching clients through this process for the last 7 years. And I've seen people heal from all types of physical, mental, and emotional challenges that have been there for years, if not decades. And that's why ultimately my greatest love language is the brain because it is just so powerful. And that's why I'm here today.
I mean, Ashley, I have to say thank you for sharing, and I am just taken back by, you talking through your story of where you started when you were younger, pushing through, keeping hope, and then you get over the hump 4 years later from that one terrible, terrible time in your life. Then life is like amazing. You're soaring, you're doing what you're fulfilled in life every day. You're what you've aspired to be. You're traveling the world, and then something else happens. And to your point, you said it was almost worse. It was worse.
Yes.
And you mentioned you living through hell, every day is torture, but you kept fighting and you kept pushing. And we've had 400 plus conversations on this podcast with fighters, with people who keep pushing. And first of all, I just got to say thank you for sharing, because I know our audience definitely is like just taken back by everything that you've said. I want to learn more about the nervous system, because clearly you've figured it out. You said you've tried everything under the sun to help you. So can you help Elevation Nation understand like the 101 on what is the nervous system and like why it's considered the operating system in our bodies?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for your kind words. And everyone's hearing a lot of buzz about the nervous system these days. That not necessarily like 9 years ago when I started delving into it, which is fantastic. But let's just simplify it. The nervous system is the brain and body and how they communicate together. The brain communicates to the body communicates back to the brain. And really our nervous system is formulated throughout our life. It's just happening, whether we want it to or not. So as anything you've gone through in your life, everything you've experienced, heard, said, all of that starts to be implemented in your brain in its incredible data bank. And from that, your brain learns who you are, what your identity is, what you believe, how you should act. All of it is impacted by your life, but especially the hard stuff. Anything that really impacted you emotionally, physically, things that changed your life, altered you, that especially is what formulates your nervous system. And from that, your brain learns, hey, how do I need to protect you in your life? What do I need to look out for? What is safe for you, right? Because that's really all our brain cares about, is that our physical and mental and emotional well-being is doing okay. And the same areas of the brain activate for both physical and mental threats. So the brain really doesn't decipher. It's all important. So those things that hurt and altered you, your brain like takes a snapshot neurologically and it keeps it in your brain, and it is constantly cross-referencing it in real time, in like nanoseconds, on how you should respond. What is safe for you? How do I protect you? And that's where a lot of our stress responses come from. And that is where anxiety comes from, depression, pain, physical stuff, limiting beliefs, negative thought loops. Those are all really coming from the brain's protective centers of, hey.
And is that from experiences that you've had throughout the course of your entire life?
Yes. Yes. So one thing that is so important to understand that no one was told growing up is everything you go through are things that you're told. So something your coach or your teacher or your parent told you, right, about who you are or what your potential is. Your brain is registering that, right? And all of that starts to accumulate. And if we're not consciously taking control of that and saying, hey, no, actually, that's not true. Or, yeah, that relationship hurt me, but I can still open my heart to another relationship. Or, yeah, I lost and failed, but I can do better and win another time. Like if we're not redirecting the impact of these experiences or what we've been told, our brain is just automatically formulating identity, what our potential is, how we need to operate in our life to stay safe, not big, not adventurous, not courageous, but small and protected and predictable, right? So the brain is also trying to predict our life based on what we've already experienced. So it seeks that familiar. So if you get into a situation like a relationship that's familiar and the last one you extracted some beliefs that I'm not lovable, well, then your brain's like, I need to sabotage this ahead of time before we experience that hurt again, right? Or if you fail at a business, if you don't extract a meaning of, hey, I learned a lot from that, right? That's incredible feedback that I'm going to use to launch my next business. If you're not redirecting that, then your brain's like, I failed. We can't do that again. I don't want to fail again. That hurts so deeply. So maybe now I'm just going to keep telling you, you're a failure. You can't do it. So now I go back to the safety of the known instead of stepping out into another adventure and being an entrepreneur, right? So anything that we go through in our life that was impactful, if you're not directing it purposefully, your brain is extracting a protective, usually disempowering meaning about yourself, your potential, your identity, all to protect you from that same thing happening again. But then what that does is keep us in those familiar cycles and keep us stuck from really learning and growing from these experiences. It's just absolutely phenomenal. And because the brain doesn't have a time clock, this part in the brain, the limbic system that stores all this, it cross-references this in real time. So even if it was 10 years ago, if you didn't move through it, process it, and redefine the meaning, then if you're in a similar situation, your brain is cross-referencing that experience from 10 years ago as if it's today, right? And that's where people are like, why am I so triggered? Or why am I so overreactive? And it's like, because your brain thinks it's today. It's not going, hey, 10 years ago.
Wow.
It's going right now. And it's doing that automatically in nanoseconds.
I mean, it's all insanely fascinating stuff. Parker and I both love Joe Dispenza, and certainly a lot of similar learnings and findings as we explore the brain. I feel like Parker must have messaged you, Ashley, before this and talked about my past dating life and my traumas. So, because you were hitting the nail on the head there with those. So we're gonna work through that offline.
Okay.
But I think it's super interesting, and I want to get into more details with it, of course, so we can nerd out. But you also mentioned that you're a mother. And for me, many of the traumas and patterns that I have in my head happened when I was a younger kid and no one did anything wrong, but things happen to you in your life, whether you're surrounded by all love or some pain and love, right? Like things just happen. How, as you now, as a mother, are you helping to create a space for your children to grow and thrive and make mistakes, but also not fall into patterns and negative loops as you're setting them up for success in the future? I think a lot of parents struggle with this 20 years ago when Parker and I were getting raised, and even more so in today's day and age.
Yeah, such a great question. And Sam, I promise Parker did not tell me. I just felt inclined to go there. And it's a common struggle. But oh my gosh. And let me just say, all parents are learning on the job. Do you know what I mean? We all parents are learning, and all parents impacted their kids in one way or the other. And in my work, I've definitely worked with people who had really tough parents, and I think a lot that loved them and brought their own traumas and wounds and were trying to figure it out, you know? This is a great question because there's a really important twofold aspect to it. Because I think also in parenting today, we've swung the pendulum too far to where kids are losing emotional resilience. So this is where it's really important. I think one of the best things I've done as a parent is making mistakes okay. And really defining for her that failing is not meaning you're a failure. Failing's a verb. We're all going to fail. We're all going to make mistakes. Failure is a noun. It's an identity. And those are very important to differentiate. The first thing that I did for her to do that is me as a parent acknowledge when I make a mistake. That's so important. And be able to apologize and make amends and share my learnings from that. I have to model that for her. And I think unintentionally, so many parents never apologized, really, right? For when we make mistakes. And hey, and these are some of my reasonings, but that gives kids permission to make mistakes without tearing themselves down. Because I think also a lot of kids were trying to make our parents proud and so forth. So I think that's one of the most important. But then to not be defined by them. What do we learn from this? What do we learn from this? Where's the feedback? The twofold aspect. So that was one of the most important things I feel like I've done. The twofold aspect is this, and then I want to share a story that literally defined my daughter's life so far. She's almost 12, but I think it's very important as parents to talk versus just what's wrong with you? Why aren't you doing this way? Do it this way, but be open to what are you feeling? What are you experiencing? What is going on? We need to understand what's going on below the behavior than just talking to the behavior. And then there comes a point, though, where we have to teach our kids that they can rise above what's going on below the surface. Because I think a lot of times now we're talking too much and being identified with our wounds or our emotions and not understanding that we can become greater than them. So let me circle back around by sharing this story. My daughter all of a sudden started to just really have fears. And I honestly think some of that was from what she watched me go through. Because she was 2 years old when her mom lost the ability to walk. She didn't remember me before that. When I was healthy and strong, she saw her mom suffer and go through surgeries and painful treatments. And she saw me in pain and she saw me crying. I did my best, but like I'm a human, you know, and she witnessed real suffering. She saw stresses that we went through. And I think some of that started to show later because she couldn't register it, but she was watching it, you know? And I had to tell her, you have to be careful around mommy, right? She couldn't come run and jump on me. So her upbringing young was different, you know? And so I believe it was a delayed kind of response. She became very clingy to me, very fearful of doing things she loved. Didn't want to go to dance all of a sudden, didn't want to go to friends' houses. Now, some of my instinct before I understood all this would be like, what's wrong with you? Nothing's wrong. Like, just go to your friend's house and you're going to dance. Like, that's it. I did the first part, which was, honey, this is really different for you. Like, what's going on? What are you feeling? What are you experiencing? I don't know. I'm just so afraid. And she's little, so it's not like she could totally articulate. But we talked about some of her fears and not wanting to leave me. And I had to help her maybe connect to that was maybe part of what you watched mommy go through. Like, do you think that could be that? You know, we talked about it a lot to where I was actually trying to understand her and not just the outcome of what was going on inside of her. So we did that. And I think as a parent, that's super important to just really try to understand. But she still wasn't wanting to get beyond it. So I spent a good amount of time talking with her, loving her, compassionate love. And then one time I was taking her to dance and she was 7, you guys. So my little cute little 7-year-old that you just want to love and take care of and fight all the demons for, okay? You know, they're just so cute and innocent. And my little 7-year-old's in the backseat just crying. We're in the parking lot of the dance studio and she's crying. I don't want to go in. I don't want to go in. And I knew and I had to take a deep breath because my instinct as her mom is to, okay, we'll just go back home and I'll hug you and I'll take care of you, you know, because that's what you want to do. And this little pipsqueak in her little ballet tights and my mommy heart is bleeding. But I knew I had already given her that compassionate love. And so I took a deep breath and I said, honey, I love you too much to let this fear be part of the rest of your life. And if we don't start to overcome it, you're going to be afraid to do anything. So I love you enough to tell you that we are not leaving until you get out of the car and go to dance. And she's sobbing, you guys, and I'm doing everything I can to stay stern. But it wasn't, you just go in there. I told you, I love you. And this is why, because this fear is growing and getting stronger. and it will start to impact every area of your life. And she's just crying, and I just had to sit there. I said, I'm not leaving. And she was crying and crying, and then all of a sudden I could see her know I was serious. But she also knew I loved her. And she just, her little, wiping her tears away with her cute little hands. And I just saw her, though, square her shoulders. And she goes, okay. And she walked into that dance studio. It was like, and as soon as she got inside, I started crying because I was like, all these emotions.
You're holding it in.
All
Yeah.
these emotions. But I kid you not, that moment, it taught her she can do hard things. And even though she was afraid, she could rise above it. And it changed from that moment on. You would never guess my daughter had fear. She is so bold, so vivacious, so talk to anyone, sing on stage, speak in class. But that's where I think parenting is failing. We swung the pendulum so far where we're like, oh, if you're sad, then you don't have to do anything. If you're afraid, you don't have to do anything. It's like, let's talk, let's understand, and then let's teach you that you can rise above this. You are strong and you are powerful, and you can be greater because of this, not be defined by it. So I know it was a long answer, but it applies to us as adults too. In the mental health space, sometimes I just think we've become so attached to diagnoses and certain emotions that we're losing the grit and resilience that we as humans have to go, man, I feel this way. Let me move through it, and then let me rise above it.
I mean, I'm glad that you went there, because I was going to chime in and say, you know, Sam and I have talked with many leaders, especially in organizations, and what they're finding, particularly among their young adults, is that they aren't as resilient. They're not willing to push themselves outside their comfort zone like maybe they've seen these adults, young adults, you know, 10 years prior or 15, 20 years prior. And I mean, we can sit here, maybe it is because of a childhood upbringing or something that happened or did not happen to them. They didn't have a figure to push them outside of that comfort zone to go and maybe, you know, get out of the car and go in for dance, right? And now we sit here, and Sam and I go around and we speak with these leaders and these young people that they still have it within them to push outside their comfort zone, and that is with mental fortitude. And Ashleigh, my question for you is, you know, what you were describing is creating a space to allow someone to fail and acknowledge that and provide real talk and ask those questions. What did we learn from this? How can we ask more about it? And, you know, really help someone rise above. I think our business leaders, people who run organizations, can learn a lot from what you just mentioned about being there for their people. And so my question for you is, as adults, if we're sitting here, how can we be more resilient? Even though maybe, you know, if our parents didn't give us that opportunity when we were younger.
Right. Well, what I want to emphasize is there's an area of our brain that is directly correlated to resilience. And the beautiful thing about our brain is whatever we practice gets better. And so resilience can get better and stronger. So yes, there are some more inherently resilient people, but also that's been a choice that's been built, because people will be like, oh, I'm just not as resilient or not as strong or tough. Well, maybe not yet, but know that there's an area of your brain that will grow as you exercise resilience. So the thing that I would first tell people is, when they're in a place of challenge, or they're feeling defeated, or whatever the emotional or physical or obstacle that they're going through that is making them feel like, I can't do this, right? Or I can't keep doing it, or I want to quit, or I'm not good enough to do this or rise above it. Let's just first acknowledge it, okay? Let's first acknowledge it, but then I want you to know one of the greatest assets is the meaning we give it. So when you're going through something tough, the pendulum can swing both ways. I don't know how I can do this, or I don't know how I can do this yet. So I'm not the person yet, maybe, who can do this, but guess what? I can become that person. Because I actually really don't like the saying that you are perfect exactly how you are. Now, that's different than saying you have worth no matter where you are. But you're perfect exactly as you are. What if you feel overwhelming defeat and depressive and anxiety every day? You're like, wait, no, I don't feel great about this version of me, and I can't do what's in front of me yet. But what I would say is, you can rise to become. So let's sit down and say, what am I feeling? Okay. So not just, oh, I'm stressed or I'm overwhelmed. No, be specific. The brain loves specificity. So too often we're just like, I'm stressed, I'm overwhelmed. And it's like, well, that could be so many things underneath that. So get specific. Oh, I'm not feeling good enough. Oh, I'm afraid I'm going to fail. Oh, I'm afraid that people are going to judge me. Like, let's get specific, because we can't change in just these overview of emotions. So you have to actually take the time to do it for yourself. Like, have a conversation with yourself. What am I actually feeling? Where are some weaknesses that this is giving me an opportunity to grow through? And that's the key. The area of the brain that grows with resilience is directly correlated to the meaning of, this situation is too much, or this is really hard, but I have the capacity to do it one day at a time. That's what really lights up that part of our brain, is the meaning of, I can't quite do this yet, but I can grow and try and become the person that can overcome this. So sit with yourself, be honest, name it, get specific, be honest with where there's weaknesses that you can improve. Start redirecting your brain to that possibility, and then matching that with even one micro action a day. Because what we do is we look at the whole picture, and that's just too overwhelming. And then the brain is like, I don't even know. Let's just not do it. Quit, give up. You can't, let me just send all these self-defeating thoughts, instead of, I can do this. This is what I need to work at. These are the character traits. This is the resilience I can grow. What is one application today? What is one action step that I can do today in alignment with that? And if it's just one, by the end of the week, you've got 7. And those are all evidences to your brain of possibility.
Are those easy steps, like things that don't give you fear, like very, very small? Or is it something that, you get that feeling of like a little anxiety builds up, a little fear, your heart starts to race?
And honestly, it depends on the person, because for someone, a little step might be so significant for them, where another person can go to a little bit bigger. So I always tell my clients, what is that next step of progress that is a little bit afraid, like a little bit trepidatious, but doable, right? So we're not jumping from where we are to clear up high and oh, I can't speak in public, I'm going to go to that board meeting and speak in front of 30 people. It's like, no, stand up for yourself to your coworker, share your opinion, right? If that's terrifying, do that next step. And even if it doesn't go well, the important part is to then actually connect it for your brain that you did that and you just built that muscle of new tenacity, of new courage. We have to point that out to our brain. That's another really important part of building resilience, is acknowledging any step of progress, because the brain will always point out where you're still lacking, like where you failed today, what didn't go well, you didn't do this, this, and this. We have to consciously go, yep, but I did do this. And that's a forward step. And if I do that every day, we highly underestimate what those small micro applications accumulate and add to. And the brain is an evidence seeking machine. So as you give it little evidences of possibility in yourself every day, that will start to grow. And now your brain actually not only has evidence to back you up, but starts to believe what hopefully you're affirming, that I can do this. I can grow. I can become more than I am today. I can be more resilient. I can take these action steps. And those two work together to grow that area of your brain. It's not just a character trait that grows that area of your brain that does, in fact, make you more resilient.
The most fascinating organ in our bodies by far. There's so much to learn. We could have a whole episode on this next question that I'm about to ask. So I apologize in advance, but I didn't want you to leave, Ashleigh, before I started to talk about it. Parker and I are very into mindfulness, spirituality. We talked about Joe Dispenza. I'm currently reading this book. I don't know if you've read it, The Map of the Consciousness Explained. So I'll let you know how it is.
Okay.
Oftentimes, I think looking back, and I heard you talk about this on a prior podcast, people knew the brain, science, cool, made sense, but they heard manifestation or affirmations, or some of this Eastern medicine to be woo-woo. We now, I think, are hopefully coming on to a time where the science is now backing up so many of these practices that people really looked down upon in America for so many years. So I'm curious, for someone like you, who is, of course, backed in science, but also there's now, I don't even know the right word to say, the science is backing up the stuff that used to be unscientific, right?
Yeah.
How are you now, discovering new things, learning more about, new ways to grow and improve our brain, all backed by science in today's day and age when so many new things are coming out, it seems, every couple months here?
It is a lot to keep
It's
up
crazy.
to. And really it's been the last 10 years because we have functional MRIs now. So we really couldn't understand the brain while it was in action. And that's where we have the science to support these ideas that we really are creators, that what we think is what we become. And that's not just something we talk about, but the brain is constantly directing how we show up, what we do, the energy we put out, what we allow into our life. So let me just put it this way, that will maybe also make it make sense, because I think still to a lot of people, the sense of like law of attraction still sounds like, yeah, okay, like, but go to work, you know what I mean? And definitely you have to merge work with energy. That's definitely true. But what I will say is your brain becomes the bodyguard around what it allows you to do and what it allows in. So whatever you have a belief around, like, I'll never be successful in this, or I'm always going to have to work for so and so because I don't have enough grit or capacity to become that entrepreneur and be successful. Your brain is now oriented to holding you in alignment with who you say you are and what you say is possible. So it will put up all types of resistance when you try to take actions outside of that. Like let's simplify it. I'm not a morning person. Let's say that. I am. I wake up at 4 a.m., whether I want to or not. But when people declare that, I'll just simplify this. I'm not a morning person. The brain's like, okay, now one of the strongest mechanisms in the brain is to hold you to your identity. I'm not a morning person. So if you go to set an alarm to be a morning person, your brain will do all it can. Press that snooze button, press that snooze button. You can't get up because guess what? You're not a morning person. When you want to go to bed earlier that night, your brain will be like, no, let's stay up, watch that movie, go scroll your phone, because you're not a morning person, which means you're a night owl. So the brain will put up resistance. If you're like, I hate working out. Every time you go to do it, your brain will put up all types of fight and resistance because you hate it. And the brain doesn't want you to do something you hate. So I struggle with money. I've been poor all my life. Money stresses me out. Your brain will hold you to have stress around money, not trust it, not seek opportunities to bring it, because your brain will hold you. It will block you from seeing opportunities. That's like when that part of our brain, the reticular activating system, that's our filter. Once you notice something, you start to notice it all the time, right? Like if you get a new car, you're all of a sudden like, wow, everybody has this car. But before you didn't notice it at all because now it's relative to your brain. So if you start noticing things within yourself of possibility and you start acknowledging them and you start believing them, your brain will actually start to see and look for opportunities. If you continue to stay in a lack and fear and scarcity, your brain will block all that out and try to keep you in the behaviors that lock you into that limitation. So it's not just things coming to you. It's literally, is your brain your prison, or are you opening it up to potential to where your brain now is seeking and looking for that evidence and pushing you to become that person that you keep declaring who you are? So it's science. It will either allow information in or block it out. It will either put up resistance or it will help push you to change. Because as much as the brain wants to keep you in what it knows, it was also designed to change, but you set those parameters based on what you think and believe and how you talk about yourself and your potential. Your brain is just like, hey, I'm just doing what you said you are and what you said you're capable of. And I will hold you to this until you shift it.
You're talking a lot about the conversations that you're having with yourself and the inner work that you're doing on a day-to-day basis. I'm going to talk through a really quick story and then get to my question. I used to be very fearful of public speaking. Sam remembers the days when we first started work right after college. I couldn't even speak up in a room of 3 other people because I was so afraid that what I would say would be like, yeah, what did you say? Like, that doesn't add value. Like, you're like, who are you? And, from one step, Sam, for example, or my wife would be like, you got this, you got this. But that doesn't change the anxiety when we started to get in front of 15 people. And, that anxiety's there. I get in front, I do it. And after I'm like, oh, wow, it's great. And then Sam's like, hey, you want to go speak in front of 50 people? I'd be like, no way. Like, that sounds so scary. You go do it. There's so much fear, anxiety leading up, and that moment happens and you realize you get through it. And then someone says, hey, Parker and Sam, you guys want to be on a TV show in front of 70,000 people? No, it sounds like the worst thing in the entire world. That sounds terrible. Oh my God. But you have other people who are pushing you and you accept this sense that, yeah, maybe I can do this. Maybe when speaking in front of 500 people, 1,500 people, I'll never forget Sam was like, dude, we're doing this. And I'm like, I know it's good for me. I know it's good for our business. I know it's good for us. We can do it, but I'm scared shitless. And so the reason why I say this, Ashleigh, is because within myself, I've had to overcome what it takes to get on that stage with the microphone and be in front of a room of, let's call it 1,500 people and have, be able to share my thoughts. But what about the people who you're navigating that with? The people who are there with you to help reinforce that you can do it. How important of that is it for you? I know we talked about you and your daughter in a relationship, but as an adult, some people may not even have that.
Yeah. First, obviously, it's beneficial to have those people who believe in you. And I know some people who don't. So let's say, yes, first and foremost, if you have it, great. What a gift. Notice it as a gift. And I will tell you, I've also had people who have those people in their life, but their limitations and their negative voice is so strong, it does not matter how many people tell them, oh my gosh, you're amazing. Oh, do it. You're so good. Oh my gosh. You did incredible. And they're like, no, I was horrible. Because
Yeah.
their belief system isn't receptive to it. So while I will absolutely say it's clearly an advantage to have people, what a gift, who love you, believe in you, are encouraging you. And if you're open enough to going, okay, I don't believe it, but I'll believe you and take action, will help you. Absolutely. But for the people who have that but still can't accept it, or the people who don't have it at all, then I will tell you, notwithstanding, Parker, what Sam or your wife said to you, you had to still have that internal dialogue yourself and go, okay, I know this is good for me. Okay, I can do this, right? Because even though they were encouraging you and that helped you, you still had to have that enough to force yourself to get on stage and do
Mm.
it. So, although it's an advantage, I will tell everyone at the end of the day, ultimately, we all have to do it for ourselves, right? It's a gift, but if you don't have it, it doesn't mean you can't do it. And for the people who have it but can't receive it, it's time to take more stewardship over what you're speaking to yourself.
Mm.
And the thing that I just want people to understand is we complicate it sometimes so much, where really whatever you practice, your brain will get better at. You've practiced a lot of negative talk, a lot of fear. I promise you, if you continue to talk more possibility, your brain will get better at that. And you start taking those micro actions, then your brain will also start to support that. And with affirmations, I think a lot of it can feel disingenuous because truthfully, we have a BS radar in our brain. Okay, we do. So if you're in huge financial debt and you're like, I am wealthy, your brain is like, okay, bullshit. Like, have you looked at your bank account? Like, you don't even have a couch. No offense to you, Sam, who's still waiting on his couch. But I tell my clients, put it in the journey. Like, I am becoming more financially stable, right? I am moving towards wealth every day in my actions. I am moving towards wealth. I am breaking the cycle of poverty. Like, that feels empowering. Like, I am in the journey. I am doing this. I am moving toward it, which also lends your brain to more go, yeah, what are we doing? Let's take the actions versus just the declaration of, I am so wealthy and in reality, I'm poor. Like, let me embrace the journey of becoming, because it's who I'm becoming that's going to lead to that wealth, that success, versus the declaration that I'm already there. And that I think really changes the idea of affirmations for a lot of people. Is put it in the becoming, in the journey. I am working, I am learning, I am growing towards this. That feels like yes. And I think that also lends itself towards, like I said, doing those micro actions, which are the other part of the equation. Because you can't speak what you're also not trying to implement, because then the brain won't adopt it because it needs evidence.
I know if Elevation Nation listeners are anything like Parker, they've been rapidly typing notes in our outline of questions for Ashleigh, which is distracting me. But he's got so many golden nuggets that we've taken from you, Ashleigh. And I want to just make sure I plug, we're going to link to all of your stuff because you have so many incredible resources for people to learn from. Obviously, with bio-emotional healing, that's your program, that's your process, that's what you help people with. We just got a 48-minute little taste, which I'm like, I need more. I need to learn more. So we will link to all of that for folks. I want to move us into our next segment here to be conscious of time, which we love. It's our rapid fire segment. So we just have a couple quick questions we want to ask you. We learned a ton from you about the brain already, a lot of facts, a lot of tips. But is there one fun fact about the brain that you just love sharing with people?
Oh man, one.
Hard to pick one.
Um, we are unbelievable creators. And I want you all to think of how good you're creating from fear and limitation, and know that if the brain can do it that way, it can also do it from possibility. You just have to teach it. But you are already such a powerful creator. It's just usually from the fearful place. Because weren't we all raised like, what's the worst that could happen? Let's think upon that and hope it doesn't, versus like, hey, what do I want to happen? And do you know what? Neuroscience has shown that if I start to familiarize my brain with that it will actually open up the possibility more to that, for me acting towards that, for me moving towards that, for my brain looking for opportunities for that. Like, we truly have such incredible power to create ahead of time instead of waiting and hoping. but create whatever it is you want to experience at the board meeting, on that date, in your health, in your successes or dreams. What is it? Get clear and start to daydream about it. See it, feel it, versus the daydream about the failure and the fears and all of that. Just shift that in your brain. And I promise you, if you do that and you do it consistently, because everything in the brain also comes down to repetition, it will profoundly start to impact how you see yourself and what actions you start to take. So I love that part of the brain.
I have to brag about myself for 1 minute here. I'm sorry. I agree with that wholeheartedly, and it's taken me a long time to adopt this mindset. So I have a quick story. This past weekend, I was in LA visiting a friend, not work related. It's like 6 p.m. LA time. I get a ping from my boss. Hey, I know you're in LA visiting a buddy. Can you swing to San Diego for a meeting on Tuesday? Instantly, my mind went to all the negatives. I'm not prepared. I already have flights booked. How would I get there? I don't even know where San Diego is compared to LA. What's going on? Right? Every negative scenario. And then I took a deep breath. I went for a walk around the hotel block and I went, what if everything went right? What if it was easy and a beautiful drive down to San Diego, which it was? What if the board meeting was incredible, which it went great? What if I get to try new foods? I had some of the best tacos I've ever had in my life, right? Like, and none of the flight issues happened to me. I got home direct from San Diego to DC, easy peasy.
Yeah, because they
That
happened
actually
to
happened.
me. The flight
Yeah, you got
issues.
stuck, Parker. Thank you for taking
I
the
did
bad
that.
flights
I
for
did
me.
that for you.
You're a good friend.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The world put the flight issues on me so you could have a safe, quick trip.
This is why
home
we're
from
good
San Diego.
partners.
Yeah.
But my point being is switch your mind, but also like I needed to acknowledge after all those amazing things happened, wow, all the good stuff did happen to me. And I want to train my brain to go, that is a possibility. It's not always just the negative or bad things that happen. Oftentimes really good things happen too.
Yeah.
I love that
And
perspective.
it's an and situation, right? And that's such so important too. But look at you. You had an easy drive. I used to live in LA. From LA to San Diego, that is a miracle right there, man. Like
I'm got made fun of because I didn't know how close they were, and when I was in my frantic state of booking and rebooking things, I booked a flight from LA to San Diego, and all my friends were like, "What are you doing?" So we canceled that, and I drove. But yes, it was an easy drive. I got very lucky.
And that's just that redirect of what's all the ways that this is awful to where's the opportunity here,
Yeah.
you know? And can I just say, I had to work really hard to change that in my brain. Even though I'm a fighter and super positive, I went through so much crap in my life. My brain was very oriented to what's next. What else is around the corner? Where's the next shoe going to drop? Because my life had so much challenge. And so it was pretty validated. And some people might feel this way. Why is my brain always so negative? Like it could be pretty validated. Not only maybe you've practiced it, but maybe your life has had a lot of hard things that your brain's like, I got to be ready for the next crap thing. I got to be prepared. And so I had to really work on saying, yep, all that happened. And that's not what I want to be my daily operating system. And if crap happens, we'll address it. But I'm not going to look for it. And I'm not going to try to seek it in every opportunity looking for the bad versus, okay, where's the good here? Where's the growth? Where's the opportunity in a good way? So I love that you shared that. That's awesome. You should brag.
You should, Sam. You should. You didn't brag to me about that until now. So I love it. Ashleigh, so we have one last question. And we've asked every single person who have ever joined Elevation Nation, both on the podcast or when we speak around the country, every single person ends up with what we call a mental motto. That is a phrase, a quote, a slogan that you lead your life by. It showcases your purpose and the way that you move forward in your life. And so, obviously, this has been an incredible conversation. We would love to hear what your mental motto is.
I know. And I have two. I'm sorry. I tried, but they go together. Okay. So I got to give you both. It goes back to that one night where I said that this one phrase in my head, and I want you guys to repeat this to you. I know what life looks like if I give up. I want to see what it looks like if I keep going. Simple. Sometimes though, that in its significance goes, oh my gosh, yeah, I'm not okay if I give up. I really want to see what's possible. if I keep going. And the other part of that, which I've always said, which my life is a representative of, miracles happen when you don't give up. And I think just we give up too soon, too early. And sometimes the journey is so long and hard, and we never see the full fruition because we've also been conditioned that things should be fast and easy and hacked. And in that, we forget the beautiful growth process that happens. But miracles do happen when we don't give up.
Absolutely beautiful. Ashleigh, an hour flew by. I could talk to you for many more hours. Thank you for just sharing a little bit of your knowledge and your wisdom. And of course, your very personal story. We appreciate you opening up and sharing that with Parker and myself and our community. And we are so grateful to welcome you to the nation. Serendipitous that we got connected, and just can't thank you enough for joining us.
Thank you so much. I too. I feel like we could just keep talking and talking. Appreciate what you guys are doing in the world and for having me here. It was great.
Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, Elevation Nation. Until next week. Peace.